sort of destroyer of the seniors division, has just won so many different things. But Vini, a ferocious player in his own right, has had a lot of accomplishments himself, including winning the Charlotte Regionals, of course, and being also a LAIC senior finalist.
Yeah, essentially was the Rookie of the Year last year. He had an exceptionary first year in Masters, a regional champion, solid places at international championships, lots of championship points, going up against Australia's best, the world's best, was #1 in championship points last season. Brent Tonisson playing tried and true, like a lot of the Australian players have brought Reggie Drago V-Star up against the community poll winner. Not saying it was linked at all, not pointing fingers or saying anything. It will be that Bennett EX, of course, having the ability to item lock your opponent every single turn, using that Everlasting Darkness attack paired with the consistency and acceleration of Gardevoir EX in the curling.
Yeah. I gotta say, if there's ever a Pokemon TCG player who fits the description of Mr. Worldwide, I think it's gotta be Brent, right? Considering how much he travels around, goes to every single event he can, as we do see now both these players getting ready with their prize cards. Oh, double Ogerpon for Brent doesn't feel amazing. On Vini's side, a little bit more workable. Does have a Monkey Dory prize. I do believe is playing to 2, so that's actually going to be okay. And then 1 Bennett prize as well. So actually, I'd say Brent's prizes are definitely less workable here. And that Prime Catcher too, that's rough.
Yeah, let's not forget about Prime Catcher. Even though there could be item lock during this game, and there probably will, Prime Catcher can always just be a solid card if you ever get a break from the Everlasting Darkness attack onto your Pokemon. Yes. Excuse me. Here we go. We're getting ready into this match. This is a big one. So even if both players lose, we will be seeing them into day 2, but being 7-1 going into the second day of competition is a huge advantage. And another big advantage is going first, starting Shuppet, and this is what you want if you're Vini. We'll use this Trekking Shoes. Does actually get rid of that Luminous Energy, a great special energy card in this deck. It allows you to have a little bit of flexibility with something like the Monkey Dory, where you want your Psychic Energies on your Shuppet, but you also want the flexibility of being able to use a Adrenabrain on your Monkey Dory. We'll see the energy attachment and a pass over to Brent. Not much more needed on Vini's side as he starts things out with a Nest Ball to check the deck and see how he wants to play out this first turn.
Yeah, I'm going to be feeling pretty okay with this. I would imagine just that Nest Ball will at least guarantee you the one Reggie Drago V. And with that, starting with that Squawkabilly EX as well, even if we didn't quite get the good look at how dead or not Brent's hand is, but even if it is, you can just Squawk and Seize it away, draw a fresh 6, and you have your Reggie Drago V going. So they're very good start there. And it's also going to be extra important for Brent to play as many items as possible during this turn, because as soon as Vini evolves into that Bennett EX, there's going to be that Everlasting Darkness coming in, 30 damage, and Brent will not be able to play items. So you've got to play as many as you can now.
So we'll see the Reggie Drago get grabbed. Brent shuffling the deck means that there's probably no more going back in. Does only have access to that one Teal Mask Ogerpon. And you see him just shaking his head. We will see the Hoot Hoot come down, so Brent is playing the 1-1 Noctowl line. Of course, we saw Jewel Seeker on full display. It will make a cameo appearance here for Brent. Of course, as long as there is a Terra Pokemon, which that Teal Mask Ogerpon is, when you evolve, you can search out those item cards, which can be, or rather those trainer cards, which can be extremely useful.
Yeah, and look at this here, absolutely fantastic. Seeing another Ultra Ball, seeing a Switch evens, and a Mew EX for good measure. So you could do very well here. Just thin out the hand of the Ultra Ball to grab either another Reggie Drago V or another Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. You can then, play the switch into the Mew EX after benching it, so then you can draw extra and just really try to dig through as much as you can. Or even, just get that Dragapult V, get your discard pile set up with it.
Yeah, the Squawk and Seize has not been used yet. We just saw the Professor's Research discard the hand, so there is still plenty more action to come here for Brent. And like you said, this is the big turn to use these items before they are shut off for the majority of the game. And one of those big important items is that energy switch. You want to use the energy switch so you can get that into play and hopefully power up your Reggie Drago. However, with there only being one Teal Mask Ogerpon, it means you're just going to have the one come up in this spot. We will just see the switch into the Mew, and then we are just going to actually see the Squawk and Seize. Okay. And Brent is taking a very interesting approach, and this is one that I had seen some people talk about, of ignoring attacking with Reggie Drago V and instead using this Teal Mask Ogerpon to be the brute force of your attack, since it can be a little bit difficult to power up this Reggie Drago if you're missing things like Energy Switch. by using Teal Dance to start, of course, you do put that into play. That could be a potential option, or let's not forget that a Motivate is another great attacking option as well. So by not attaching here, all this does for Brent is just open up more avenues, and the route of being punished is a lot less than, you know, some other choices that you could make during the turn.
Yeah, especially because unlike against other decks, you're not really scared of the Squawkabilly getting KO'd here so quickly, right? Everlasting Darkness only does 30 damage, so yeah, why not? Get this energy onto the Squawkabilly, then you set up your discard pile by discarding with the other, like with the Squawkabilly itself, and then you can motivate to attach too, really strong.
Yeah, so we'll just choose to go onto the Regidrago V. I think there's merit to both. Of course, you're going to have a little bit more HP, you're going to have access to more powerful attacks, and you do put 20 damage onto the Shuppet. Look, every damage counter matters in the Pokemon TCG, as Vini will start his turn off. Does still have that Shuppet in the active spot. Means that since it was in play last turn, could evolve into a Banette EX as long as there is one in the hand. As we will see just an Iono get played, so both players will shuffle their hand to the bottom of their deck and each draw 6 prizes since we've only just begun this game, Freya.
Yeah, so 6 prizes for each player, so 6 cards drawn. Does find that Ultra Ball, so that means there is the out to that Banette EX, and the item lock will be up and running. But I've got to be honest, not much else to work with here. So, you know, if Brent can find a way into a Regidrago V-Star and start attacking, Vini's going to be under a lot of pressure here, I think.
Yeah, we actually see a very interesting card in Vini's deck list. This is something we've sort of come to see accustomed in the Banette EX deck. It is that Gravity Gemstone. And this is one of the downsides of going in with Squawkabilly early on is, by putting it up, if you do have the Gravity Gemstone, it means that you have to now commit another energy to Squawkabilly to retreat it. And now you sort of wonder, what if I had just, you know, left my Mew EX up in the active spot, started just powering up something like the Ogre Pawn, and at least by putting pressure by attacking, if my opponent wants to knock me back out, I'm going to get access to item cards.
And I think the judge are having to read the Gravity Gemstone just to make sure what it does. Yeah, not a card we see very often, but yeah, it does indeed. It increases the retreat cost of both active Pokemon by 1 as long as it is attached to the active Pokemon. So yeah, very strong here as now Brent's going to have a little bit of more of a spot of bother trying to get the Squawkabilly out of the way. Of course, with item shut off as well, that Nest Ball can't do anything, that Energy Switch can't do anything. Yeah, it's rough going.
Now, with this being a slower matchup, Brent is not necessarily in a rush to take a knockout. It's really going to depend on what these draws look like without item cards. Now, let's not forget here, you can't retreat that Banette, or you can't retreat because of the Gravity Gemstone.
Yeah, that's what we're just talking about, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and sometimes you forget, but that is an excellent card to find. So finds the boss's orders, can bring up Monkey Dory, and the question now, is there an energy card? No, it's going to have to use this V-Star power early, but it's honestly okay.
Yeah, it's fine, right? You just need energy.
Yeah, as long as there's something like a Dragapult in the discard pile, that means that you can knock out this Monkey Dory and also place damage counters onto this Banette so that a following either Rolling Iron or a Dragapult EX Phantom Dive. Now, looking at Brent's list, he's not playing the Hisuian Gudra, so it will just be the Dragapult EX. But regardless, you're going to be in an excellent spot now that you have your attack powered up.
And we saw that the Dragapult was discarded earlier because that was something that Brent went for to make sure it was set up in the discard. So yeah, there it is, Apex Dragon copying that Phantom Dive. And this is what we're talking about, right? If Brent can set up the Regidrago, put up some pressure and start doing attacks, it's a lot of pressure on Vini here.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, the big thing for Vini is, are there any of those counter catcher? You can't deal with this Drago head on. It's not possible. You don't have the damage output. So the question here is, could Vini find a way to, maybe bring that Squawkabilly EX back up into the active spot? I mean, with the Gravity Gemstone, it would be a little bit hard to move it.
So the cards in hand are Boss's Orders, Iono. So there's only like 2 choices here, but it looks like it's going to be indeed that Boss's Orders, not on the Squawkabilly, but on this Regidrago V. We talked earlier about how it has a huge retreat cost of 3, and now with that Gravity Gemstone, it's in fact 4. So going to be a while to try and get this one out of the active.
Yeah, and with Vini having no Pokemon on the bench, and with Brent only playing the Jamming Tower to remove the tool cards out of play, I'm not sure if that Jamming Tower hit the discard pile, but if it is unavailable, especially now that the Legacy Star has been used, it means that there's no way to get rid of that tool, and it's going to either take 3 turns to power up this Drago, or it's going to take 3 turns to retreat it. I'm sure Brent would rather do the previous than the latter.
I think so, yeah. If you've got the free energy on, you might as well attack at that point, right? But even so, those are extra turns that Vini has now bought himself, so it can now, go ahead and bench that Shuppet that found off the top of the deck and then play one of those 2 Ionos that were the last 2 cards in hand. And it finds that Counter Catcher as well. I mean, not even going to play it now, but still might be good for later.
Counter Catcher could, in fact, be very strong for later. Especially even if 1 more energy gets put onto this Regidrago. Brent could say, look, I'm threatening attack next turn, and then he could be like, I don't think you are. I'm going to go ahead and bring up different Pokemon instead and make it tough for you. So Buddy Buddy Poffin for Vini, and this is finally where this support engine can get put into play. We'll see the Buddy Buddy Poffin grab some of the Ralts, which can then evolve into Curlia, and now that Refinement could be online, in the future turns, it means things are going to go a lot more smoothly for Vini.
Yeah, definitely important to find this so that you can now get the other part of your deck going. Of course, this deck isn't just about the Banette, it is also about this Gardevoir, so this mini Gardevoir engine, right? That's you play the Curlias and the Ralts, so you can draw a bunch of Refinement, but then you can go ahead and as well go with this Gardevoir EX to power up some attacks as well. In fact, Vini is playing that one Screen Tail, so you can, in the late game, you can go ahead and attach a bunch of energy with Psychic Embrace and finish something off with a Bench Light from the Roaring Scream.
And so this is now going to be a big track of resources for Brent. How many energy cards does he have left, and how many consecutive turns can he find those energy attachments? It feels so easy when you're playing this Regidrago deck normally. Oh, I have Earthen Vessel, I have everything, I can always draw, I have the supporter cards. But when you're playing against a slower deck, when you're not able to use abilities like Muse Restart, when you're unable to use abilities like the Pheasantippides Flip the Script, things slow down, and it can really start to tick in terms of how your board is being built, because while it is just 30 damage every turn, it's eventually going to add up, and it means that Vini can take some knockouts with some more obscure Pokemon like Gardevoir EX down the line, like Screamtail, and every damage counter is going to matter.
Yeah, now, interestingly enough, Brent doesn't have the means to draw more cards in hand, but he's going to play it very patient here, just opted to attach a Grass Energy and pass, so now that third energy attachment to be able to use the Apex Dragon is being threatened, so Vini needs to carefully consider how he's going to move forward from here.
Yeah, big question of, are you going to use the Counter Catcher? Do you think your opponent has another energy card in their hand to be able to attack? It's hard when your opponent, all they're really doing is just draw, passing, and attaching, and that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't really give you much information, right? So you're not quite sure what your opponent is working with. They could be working with pretty much like the perfect hand against an item lock deck, or they could just be happening to draw the energy but not working with much else. So
Vini can deduce at this point that the most likely situation is that Brent has 7 Grass Energy and 3 Fire Energy. That's been the staple for Regidrago as of recent. So with the 1 Grass Energy in the discard pile and the 3 in play, it means that there is only 3 energy cards left. So those are the only outs that Brent has to potentially move, assuming there's no boss's orders plus a single attachment. Yeah. So we'll see the Teal Mask Ogerpon. Interesting choice, actually, to bring the Teal Mask up. What do you think the reasoning for that is for Vini here?
I guess you just don't want to necessarily bring up something that can attack for 1 energy with Motivate, right? It's because in this instance, both the Squawk ability and the Teal Mask Ogerpon do have 2 energy as a retreat cost because of the increase from the Gravity Gemstone. But with the Teal Mask Ogerpon and the active, in theory, it could be Teal Dance plus attached to retreat, and but then maybe you actually want that because then you're kind of encouraging Brent to burn through more energy. So you're kind of almost like baiting that extra energy disposal so that you can then finish things off by bringing up something else and then announcing Everlasting Darkness and just winning the game that way.
It will be another Iono here from Vini. So getting the hand, shuffling it, put it on the bottom of the deck. Vini will get 6 cards. Brent just 5. See what else is available here for Vini. Has used that 1 Refinement ability. If there's another Curlia, that could get evolved, draw some more cards. Monkey Dory did go down earlier, but that's another Pokemon you'd really love to get reestablished since it essentially allows you to do 60 damage every turn. However, the second copy is in the prize cards. There is a Super Rod, though, so that could be a way for Vini to get that Pokemon back. However, it is a lot of resources to burn. You're not going to be able to recover Pokemon at all for the rest of the game, since that's the only way to bring Pokemon back is just that single copy of Super Rod. So maybe Vini has got to decide whether or not it's worth it or not.
And here we go, like you just mentioned, right? You were debating whether bringing up the Teal Mask Ogerpon was a good idea because you can go ahead and Teal Dance plus attach to retreat, and that's exactly what's happened. So now going to come in with that Phantom Dive, take a KO on this Banette, and then let's see where these 6 extra damage counts go. Going to put it onto a mix of the other Banette on the bench, and then also onto the Ralts for good measure.
Yeah, 5-1 is exactly what you want to do in this spot. It means if there's no Monkey Dory that comes down, and you'd only be able to do that if you have something like Psychic Embrace to have essentially the attachment onto the Banette and then also the attachment for turn from your hand, then at this point, another Phantom Dive is just going to do the same thing. It's going to take another clean knockout, and Brent will be pretty set at this spot.
I mean,
Actually, it does get evolved, so I was going to say one more Phantom Dive would do it, but now that Kirlia's evolved, it will be out of range, so we'll see how this game progresses. But Brent, as of now, clearly in the driver's seat, lots of control. Vini has really not been able to lock Brent out of the game so far, but as things progress, more resources get burnt. Vini is not out of this by any means.
No, not at all. And these item lock decks, it can go one of two ways, right? Because in the early game, you kind of really stifle their setup, you kind of prevent your opponent from doing anything, but maybe there's a little break in the action, right? When it comes into strength again is back in the late game, when your opponent's really low on resources, you re-establish your item lock and bring something into the active that can't attack, and then that's the point where you really close the door on your opponent, and that's kind of also the ultimate win condition for these item locking decks.
So we see Palpad shuffle back a few of those supporters. I'm sure those Iono are more than happy to be put back in the deck to be used at a later time. As start the refinement train, does get rid of Spiritomb, not a card you need, and that's going to be the MO of Kirlia. Get rid of a card I don't want, grab two cards that are hopefully cards that I do want. Artisan will also come down into play. So that means that Vini could grab, another Kirlia, or rather Ralt, excuse me. If there's a Super Odd, it could grab the Monkey Dory. So it's a really good card to have down, especially when you've seen Brent already go through one of these Stadium cards. Research to follow it up. So 7 cards for Vini, can still use that Artisan. See what these cards allow him to put together this turn.
Yeah, and Artisan, a very safe stadium to put down because Brent's amount of basic non-rulebox Pokemon is pretty much minimal, right? It's pretty much just the Kyurem, which you might not want to bench anyway, the Cleffa and the Hoot Hoot, and the Hoot Hoot's already down, and I don't think you really want to put the Cleffa down when it can get easily KO'd by an Everlasting Darkness, so a very safe stadium to put down for Vini as well.
We'll see the Trekking Shoes, gets rid of a Kirlia, finds another card from the deck. The question here, was there some sort of way to get something like Gardevoir EX into play? If you put Gardevoir into play, it's maybe something that's a little bit more tough to knock out. It allows you to put some of these Psychic Energies onto your Psychic Pokemon as you so choose. And it looks like that's the motion of an Ultra Ball right there for Vini, and it will be. Does get rid of a few pieces that aren't needed, and will now find that Gardevoir EX. I mean, looking at this piece, though, it looks like there's not a way to get Monkey Dory back at this spot, and that can be tough. It's really a big piece of this deck to constantly be healing your Pokemon, but also essentially applying more damage and turning your item lock 30 into item lock 60.
Yeah, that's really ideally what you want to be doing, right? And not only turning your item lock into doing more damage, but healing your own Pokemon in the process as well. So every time you do that ability, you move 30 off of your own onto one of your opponent's Pokemon. So really pulling double duty in that regard. Going to want to re-establish that if at all possible. But after finding this Gardevoir, going to go for a refinement first. Going to discard that Professor's Research. Doesn't really want to discard the resources in hand right now. 2 more cards drawn, finds another Psychic Energy and a Buddy Puffin, it looks like.
So Gardevoir will be evolved into the active spot, and this makes me wonder, is this going to be an attacking with Gardevoir EX turn? And it looks like it will be. So an attachment for turn and 1 Psychic Embrace smartly means that it will be out of Lost Impact range. So while Brent will be able to play item cards again, he will not have necessarily an easy path to knock out this Gardevoir. He would need something like another Gusting card to maybe take a knockout onto Benetti X instead. Yeah,
and this is one of the biggest differentiators and skill gap between people who play the item lock decks, right? Is knowing exactly the right time to turn off the item lock when it's you're doing a meaningful attack or meaningful damage, and when you know that the items being enabled for your opponent again is going to enable them to have the least advantage. It's such a hard balance to get right, but if you can get it right, that's when these item lock decks really, really shine.
And we finally do see the Super Odd, and the Artisan means that we'll see either the Monkey Dory or the Screamtail come down into play. So that will mean that more Pokemon slowly will join. The biggest thing here for Vini is you've got to be careful to not put 3 of those Pokemon in play that have 100 or 10 HP or less. If you do that, a simple Trifrost is going to close things out. So it is sort of one of the limitations you have when you're not playing Manaphy in your deck. It can come up in some circumstances, but not enough clearly for Vini, as he's chosen to omit playing Manaphy this weekend in his deck list.
Yeah, Manaphy in general is a card that's seen a little big downtick in play. I think a lot of people thinking because of course, it doesn't prevent the Phantom Dive bench damage from happening because that places damage counters rather than doing damage, not worth playing. But of course, it does protect you very well against Kyurem's Trifrost, so it is still a consideration. Some people playing it, some not. But in this instance, yeah, no worry about that. So that Trifrost could be really devastating later on.
So it looks like we're lining up for a Miracle Force onto this Regidrago. So it will put it to 90 HP remaining. Listen, it's getting close to being knocked out in the future by some Everlasting Darkness attacks. So here we go, 190 damage, and Brent has the green light. It is back online and does have Ultra Ball. This makes me wonder here, is there a way for Brent to maybe close the game out this turn? does have access to the Knock Towel finally, so Jewel Seeker is available, but I don't think there's any ways to, modify the damage in this spot. There's nothing like Halucha, some cards like that. However, this will make it pretty enticing that Brent is going to be able to take another 2-prize turn, and additionally, if he so chooses, can spread damage, or doesn't even need to spread damage, but can just threaten game on the following turn by using that Trifrost and knocking out something like Monkey Dory.
And I think the big thing, right, is if you do this here, you have the boss's orders play, and you just KO the Burnett, then you know your items are good for the rest of the game, and that's almost like good enough, right? Just kind of stop that item lock from being reestablished, and you're good to go.
Yeah, when the item lock doesn't slow your opponent down, you see 30 damage is just not enough in this spot. Brent has found the pieces he needs to take control of this game, and there's really not a lot of options Vini has left. Brent's going to go ahead and play this Canceling Cologne just because, getting it out of the hand. Temple of Sinnoh will get rid of the Artisan, so less help for Vini in terms of finding those basic Pokemon, as Brent will just continue to play down everything he needs and the boss's orders to finish things off. On to this Bennett EX. We'll see how he decides to spread the damage counters, but it's going to be a very hard game for Vini to come back in.
Yeah, this Temple of Sinnoh actually pulling double duty as well, of course, because it does shut off the Luminous Energy, which is the only, basically, dark-type energy provider that Vini plays, so that Monkey Dory is not going to be able to use its ability unless he finds a Stadium counter.
And he will not be able to, because we saw both Artisan get played. The one Stadium played for a turn, and then Professor's Research discarded the other Artisan the previous turn, so sort of an insult to injury here for Vini.
Yeah.
He is pretty deep in this game, so he'll decide to play it out, see what he can cook up to close things out.
Yeah, that Monkey Dory effectively neutered, and that's very important as well, because Monkey Dory might have been one of the ways that Vini could really claw his way back into this game, given that there is no item lock established. But as it stands currently, I think Brent's got this pretty much on lock.
The Gardevoir will come up, but with how things stand, it's going to be in target range for a Lost Impact knockout. I think the doors are shutting on Vini. I mean, this is a last round. Obviously, a tie is okay. It's not optimal for either player. But maybe that's what Vini's thinking at this spot. I might as well play to my outs. If I lose, I've got 2 more games. We will just see, it looks like the attachment to the Gardevoir. This could be a spot where, maybe you go for some sort of confusion flip possibly, or just taking the knockout as is. We'll be adding some disruption with the Iono. And there is a Mew EX, though, for Brent, so it's going to give him a little bit of security in terms of this draw. We'll have the 1 card, and then, of course, can fill the hand up with that restart ability. Vini's still getting 6 cards because he has yet to take a prize card so far in this match.
Can you even stop Brent from taking a KO here? I guess he can KO the Regidrago, right? But then all you really need is, 1 extra energy on the Regidrago?
Just a grass energy. Yep, that would be it. And I think this is going to be the biggest play here for Vini. If he can bring up a Screamtail eventually and then counter catcher one of these Pokemon on the bench with a Gemstone, I think that's really going to be his best way to get into this. And we are actually just going to see the Prime Catcher onto the Noctowl, and this is step 1 here for Vini. Bring up a Pokemon that has a 1 retreat cost, cannot retreat for free essentially. It's going to have to need a manual attachment or an energy switch. Take the knockout onto this Regidrago V-Star on the bench, and now force your opponent to either have the Prime Catcher that I believe has not been played yet, or for them to have the energy attachment for turn and an energy switch. Let's see what Brent has, and look at that energy switch and the energy, the perfect 2 cards, and it's gonna end the game out in style. Noctowl coming in saying, look, I can compete too, I can play. Noctowl giving off the finishing touches, and we're going to game 2. Brent closing things out in style.
Style points with the Speed Wing for 60 damage, taking the knockout on that damaged Screamtail. Wow, what a way to end that game. Drew the perfect 2 cards to do that as well. Drew the grass energy and the energy switch to be able to pull that off. We'd love to see that.
Look, you gotta have fun on stage. Brent could have retreated, but he said, I don't need to do those extra steps. This guy's never gonna attack for the rest of the tournament. Let's get him in here. Let's show him what he got.
I think one time when I was playing actually Trapghost Dust Noir, I had to attack with a Noctowl Speedwing for 40. It was that game did not end well. I did not use that to win the game, it's safe to say, because that is a much more disastrous situation. But yeah, clearly Noctowl the Speedwing, MVP of the game, clearly.
The undisputed GOAT, for sure. Look, it gets you cards, and it also goes in attacks. What more could you want? Very, very well played from Brent. Item lock didn't prove to be much of a challenge, and look, that's how this matchup goes a lot of the time. If you can slow your opponent down, if you can, find time to eventually put in those plays where Screamtail and the Gravity Gemstone is locking things up, you're going to be in a good spot. However, if you're a little bit slow and your opponent can get those turn 2, turn 3 attacks with Regidrago, you're going to be in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, you really are. Now, let's go ahead and, I don't believe we've seen the replay yet, right? So let's take a look back at that, into the highlights of that game, just to really go over it and see how it all went down. Because, yeah, it was a really, really great game. It was all really back and forth in the end, kind of showing the strength of the Bennett deck, but also what happens when the setup of it falls apart, right? When you get that Bennett sort of KO'd, and then you can't do the item lock anymore, that's really where it started to fall apart. And we see here the starts as well with that Reggie Drago V, a great start there for Brent, so able to take it. Oh wait, you already going to the game? Okay.
Yeah, you know, we could look at the replay, or we can get to this game 2 action, and you think, you know what, I think we should get down to the action here. So, Vini will get to go first again. These prize cards, not too detrimental. You do have a couple of Pokemon, one of those Gravity Gemstone, but you're starting with a Buddy Puffin, you're starting with Shuppet in the active. If you can get an energy attachment too, you're going to be in a very, very solid position. It's really going to, again, be on Brent, first turn with item cards. How many of those energy switch are you able to play? Brent this time will hopefully have access to more than one of those Teal Mask Ogre Pawn. Could definitely change the dynamic of this matchup depending on what Brent is able to do on this first turn of the game.
Now, I had a quick peek at Brent's opening hand once we go over that. I think the rest of the hand currently is a Kyurem and 6 energy.
Wow.
That's really not good.
Well, for both players' sakes, let's hope some things improve for Brent soon on.
Yeah, there it is.
There's, it's not what you want to see at all. So Vini will finish that first deck search. We'll get the news that these prizes are definitely workable. We'll grab what looks like to be 2 Ralts off the Buddy Puffin and make that 2.
Woo, 2 Buddy Puffin, pretty much the polar opposite of a start in terms of strength. Able to get down 2 more Shuppet onto the bench, and then with the 2 Ralts coming down as well, it's as good a turn 1 as you could ever ask for, really.
Full swing here for Vini, full setup. Bennett online, hopefully for the second turn of the game. Brent will have to, you know, really take advantage of his only turn without items, but if his hand is as weak as you say, Freya, it's really not what you want, because you're going to just get the energy card down, and then you're going to be in a world of pain for, you're going to be in the darkness for the rest of the game is what's going to happen.
Well, I guess at the very least, every single card in your hand is a card you can play under item lock. You know?
Have you ever seen the turn 3 Dragon Laser? It might be time.
Yeah, and that is, oh, it's a Cleffer, so the draw for turn as well. That's so horrendous. You can like barely thin out this hand. And you can't even retreat anyway. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and Cleffa's not even a great Pokemon to play down.
No.
You've got to put it down just because there is a world where you could lose the game to something like a Poltergeist, Iono. So you've got to, you know, leave it so you don't lose the game, but having Cleffa down is very, very unoptimal in terms of, you know, how you'd like your board to be. A Pokemon that just gets knocked out by Monkey Dory in 1 Adrenabrain use. So it looks like Vini has an opportunity, pending there's a Bayonet EX, to start item blocking and put himself in a solid spot.
I'm not going to lie, if I was Brent here, especially considering the matchup I'm up against, I would have considered going for the Celestial Roar, but it looks like it's going to be an Enveloping Shadow in his heads. So even now, if he draws an item, it's not going to be a now, it draws an Earthen Vessel.
Wow. Really had nothing in the hand, no Curlias, no Bennett EX, just has to attach and pass. Is there anything for Vini here? Another Buddy Puffin. Is the hand really that bad?
It's just some both players,
and Boss's orders, it looks like. Are we going to have to see some more coin flips? Here we go. It's another Shadow flip. Heads to keep Brent item locked. It's a Tails.
But will it matter?
Well, it kind of matters in this case. I mean, the biggest thing here is Brent can continue to thin the deck out, grab some more energy cards, and now the Dragon Laser can be used from Brent to start taking some prize cards and put some damage onto these bench Pokemon.
But hold on, I think Brent top decked the Professor's Research as well.
That's exactly what you want. Professor's Research would be the excellent card for Brent to search through the deck a little bit, grab some more pieces, draw some more cards. We'll be getting the news that there is 1 Ogre Pawn on the prize cards. Everything else very tame in terms of power strength. So assuming that he can, you know, pop off this turn and put on a good show, take some knockouts, apply some pressure, he's going to be in a really good spot.
And, you know, the turnaround, right, here, who we were saying, you know, Brent has a really rough start, and Vini's super strong with the double Buddy Puffin, but you just completely didn't even realize that the rest of Vini's hand was really, really weak, so you have all these Pokemon out, but then nothing to follow up with, and now suddenly Brent has been bailed out by this top deck of the Professor's Research, and he's off to the races.
Yeah, absolutely. No Dragon Pokemon in the discard pile yet besides what I believe is just the Kyurem. So we'll see if there's anything else and if there's a Reggie Drago V-Star. And there is Ultra Ball in the hand. And this makes me wonder if the Kyurem is in the discard pile, is it worth going for a big Trifrost this turn if it means you are guaranteed not going to get item locked on the following turn? Oh, not guaranteed though, that's the tough thing, right? If you were to use Trifrost, you could knock out all the Shuppet. But there is a world, you know, where who knows, Rare Candy is played, and then Everlasting Darkness, you know, or Enveloping Shadow, excuse me, could
the coin
flip
flip
heads
again,
and go back. So I think this is just the safer decision here for Brent. Use Phantom Dive, knock out 2 of these Shuppets. You know your opponent's hand is so weak. There's got to be a top deck here for Vinny. Is there something to bail it out?
Nest ball.
It's just a Nest Ball. That's not what you need. There's no Pokemon like Pheasantipity here, just the Mew EX, so it may be restart and pray here for Vinny. But on top of that, having Mew on the bench, it is a great way to draw cards, but it's a big liability in a matchup like this down the line. And we're going to be fully thinning out. We're going to see the Buddy Poffin.
Yeah, and
oh wow, this is tough.
Yeah, so I think there was a discussion there because whether it was okay to just order things, but no, we're all good here. So no for detachment, restart, drawing 2 cards once to find. Oh, it's a boss's order, send a Monkey Dory.
The boss is at least something you can maybe try and stall for a little bit of time, but that is not what you want at all. We're going to actually see the boss's orders onto the Mew, and the Enveloping Shadow, it does flip heads, so that is at least a way to, you know, slow time down a little bit more. But as it stands, the Mew has free retreat. It can move out of the active spot. Vinny did not play the boss to, you know, have the effect. It was just to try and draw more cards off restart the following turn. So the effect is not what's important. But here we go. Brent is just going to have another 2-prize turn, taking both knockouts, having not used the V-Star power yet, having nothing in play, and here we go. This is Vinny's best chance. 2 cards off restart. Is there anything that can bail him out of this spot?
There's a Curlia
and an Iono. But the big piece here for Brent is there has not been a V-Star power used yet. No V-Star power means there are going to be lots of options for him to grab back. However, Vinny can put together some sort of combination. It's really going to revolve around that Gravity Gemstone. If there's no Gravity Gemstone, a simple attachment on any of these bench Pokemon means that a retreat and a boss's orders, or even just a Trifrost, could close this game out.
Yes, so many Trekkie shoes being fired off. I saw 1, 2, 3, almost like 4 there in a row as more cards in the discard, more draw, but no Gravity Gemstone. So I think, I don't think Vinny has a way to really stop Brent from winning here, because he can just use the Legacy Star to get back the boss's orders and KO the Mew.
He can just Trifrost this turn as well.
Or that,
That's a total option. It just seems like there are too many doors open for Brent to close this game out, and Vinny is just seeing what he can possibly do. Sure, there's the counter catcher, but your opponent has the exact card they need to close it out, and that's going to be it. Brent Tonisson 2-0, advancing to 7-1 to end off day number 1 in a solid spot to potentially bring home his first international championship win.
Yeah, huge congratulations to Brent. Has been it was literally the #1 ranked player in the world on championship points last season, and with the amount of events that he plays in, it's hardly surprising, right? But now maybe looking to already was able to win a regionals, of course, or was it a second place? I'm trying to remember. That was one of the regionals I was a part of, so I should know.
He did win a regional championship last
that was
year,
it.
so he does have a regional win. However,
last.
he is missing that international placement, that super solid international placement. I know that's something he's really looking for this season.
And we know he's good enough to do it as well, right? I mean, there is barely, in terms of the amount of events that he's played and the skill that he's demonstrating that we know he has. You don't want to say overdue, because, I mean, there's so many players that you could say that about, right? But if there's anyone who I wouldn't be surprised to be picking up their first internationals win, it would be Brent.
A very deserving player, played Pokemon essentially full-time last year, traveled to so many events, and ended as the global #1 Pokemon Championship point leaderboard holder. See if he has what it takes. I know he's looking to get that achievement again. It's going to be a hard one for sure, because again, lots of players are always giving it their best, traveling to all these events, trying to be the very best. However, it's always anybody's game, and Brent is a fundamentally solid player with a lot of experience and a lot of plot armor in terms of, the Australians do have a lot of plot armor going to the event. So plot armor, experience, good draws, and good fundamentals. That's a great combination.
I was going to say, I'm a little bit disappointed. The very best,